Welcome to part 5 of the Mandola build. In the past video we prepared the top, we did some work on the fingerboard. In this video we're going to do some more work with the fingerboard, but we're actually going to focus on getting the top installed onto the sides. Please excuse the jumbled nature of the video. I'm showing these in the order in which they were filmed. Sometimes you got to wait for glue to dry, so you move over to another step, and I'm trying to keep pushing videos out as I get things recorded. So things seem a little jumpy between steps, but that's the reason why. Hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Alright, so with the back we've cut down the edges so they'll meet the binding, and then I'm just going to take a hand plane. I'm going to round over the tops. The last bit of bracing I have for the back is going to be a center reinforcing strip. Now I'm not going to glue this in until after I've glued the back on, because I want to make sure I get the space for the braces correct. So what I'm doing now is it's a thin piece of mahogany, and I'm just kind of smoothing it over with a hand plane. It's going to be somewhat rounded. I decided I'm going to put the back reinforcing strip onto the back before I glue the body together. So what I've done is I've marked out the thickness of the tail block and the neck block. I can always trim to fit as we fit the back to the sides, and I'll start there and I'll work my way down. So I set up my miter box. I've got the length of the first piece. Cut it off nice and square. Set it in place. Go. Now we're ready to glue them in place. And I'm just using the toggle clamps. Get the last piece glued on and we'll be ready to move on. Time to do a little more work on the neck. Now I have determined that the neck angle needs to be 3 degrees. And my dovetail is going to be 3/4 of an inch deep. So I've marked the line 3/4 of an inch in from where the 14th thread is going to be. I'm going to double check everything right now. 14th fret, the nut, three-quarters of an inch. Perfect. So I've taken my gauge, I've set it at 3 degrees. And we have to make sure, double check that we're going to cut the right angle, because we want the neck to go this way, not this way. So if I put the angle this way, the neck will pitch up. So I've got the right angle. I'm going to mark that line. Three degrees. I'm going to set up my table saw and make this cut. This will give me a 3-degree reference line for when I cut the dovetail in. Alright, we got the angle cut on the face, and then we've got each side cut out a bit. We'll cut those out with a handsaw. and then we will be able to form our dovetail when we're ready to go. At this point we're ready to glue the top on. So what I've got to do is I've got to trim down this kerf so that it's flush and everything's flush all the way around. So I'm just going to take a hand plane and run it over this kerfing. Once I've planed everything flat, I'm going to take my sanding beam and make sure that it's even. Opposite sides. I'm going to repeat the process with the opposite side just to get the kerfing down. I'll hold off on sanding until I get the top attached. I've planed off the back side as well. I haven't sanded it, but I've also removed some of the rosewood around the dovetail. And once we get the top glued on, we'll remove it from the top. But now we are ready to fit the top. Okay, so I've set the body onto the top. I've lined up the center lines, and now I'm going to mark the braces where they cross the body, and I'm going to mark the kerfing where the brace crosses underneath. Then I'm going to come outside and I'm going to mark the sides where the brace crosses. So this will allow me to create slots for the brace to run through. It also marks where I may need to thin the brace a little to fit into the slots. Now we'll mark out where we've got to cut slots, and then we'll cut the slots for the braces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start each slot with a saw cut, very shallow, to establish the boundaries. Then I'm going to use a small rasp to carve out a small recess. And I'm going to use that as a test. I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right spot before I carve away too much. So I've got the slots done. I've done a test fit, and a couple of these braces are a little high, so I'm going to knock them down a little bit with my chisel. Do another test fit. May need to deepen a couple of the slots, but it seems to be going right into place. And what you have to do is go around and make sure there are no gaps. Nice. I want a nice tight fit all the way around. This is not a good tight fit, and I can see that the brace probably needs to be slimmed down just a little bit more. Alright, I'm going to do a test clamping. With the way this design is, it's difficult to make sure that the neck block is square. The neck block has to be totally square to the center line. So what I've done is I've marked where the inside of the neck block is, and I'm going to draw a perpendicular line to the center line right at that location. And this will help me locate the block when I've applied glue to make sure that that block is square. Alright, we're ready to apply glue, and what I'm going to do on these blocks, because there is end grain here, I'm going to put the glue on there first, let it soak in, and then I'll put another application. That'll help. I tried to avoid the end grain, but unfortunately I really needed the strength of the long grain to hold the sides in these blocks here. I'm going to avoid the dovetail. Now we'll apply it to the kerfing. I'm going to clamp that in place first. Make sure we're on the line, aligned with it, aligned on the center line. Two clamps. Back here, I'll line up the center of the tail block. Clamp that in place. Go and check and make sure that we're coming down in all spots, which we are. Alright, we use spool clamps to get into the curve areas. I did cut away some more of the top so that I could get the spool clamps up nice and close. You don't want to be pulling on the edges of the top too much with the spool clamp, it'll crack. You also don't need to apply overwhelming pressure. Second clamp on the tail block. Helps to put it on the right way. We'll continue applying clamps until we have clamps all the way around. We're looking good. Got all the clamps applied. There were no gaps. Not even a tremendous amount of squeeze out, which I'm very pleased with. We will clean it up a bit inside, but everything's lined up. Clamps are in place. We'll let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow we will glue on the back. Thanks for watching. In the next video we will install electronics into the top, and we will continue working on the body and getting it all closed up, as well as inlays on the fingerboard and head plate.